She-Hulk has started feeling like a melting pot of guest stars from both the MCU and our own world. In every other episode, there's a new character who appears and ends up taking the focus away from Jen. That's an issue considering fans were already lukewarm to her character from the get-go. In today's video, we'll be discussing the show's guest star problem and more. So let's dive right in. First off, is the cameo problem real? If you're caught up with She-Hulk Attorney at Law, you'll know that every other episode of the series includes a guest star from the MCU. So far, we've seen Bruce Banner, Emil Blonsky, Wong, and now even Daredevil is expected to be making an appearance soon. Plus, that's not all. The series even featured a cameo from real-life rap star Megan Thee Stallion. And despite how fun her audition was, there's no denying that all these cameos are starting to make Jennifer Walters seem like an afterthought in her own show. Jen even addresses the issue herself in the third episode. While talking to the audience directly, she mentions that she's aware that everyone's waiting to see Wong, but she doesn't want people to think the series is going to be one of those cameos every week kinds of shows. Except even Jennifer herself can't help but correct her statement because so far, that's exactly what it's been. Though being self-aware about it doesn't make it any less of a problem. During the fourth wall-breaking comment, Walters also tells the audience to remember just whose show it really is. Next, head writer Jessica Gao has addressed the issue. When asked by Den of Geek about this cameo problem, the show's head writer, Jessica Gao, has a couple of interesting things to say. She added that it was always a big concern for them behind the scenes. They wanted the show to be about She-Hulk, and so adding a guest star every week didn't always feel right. The writers didn't want She-Hulk to need a famous dude to come to help her out each week, but in the end, they decided that because of just how many interesting characters the Marvel Cinematic Universe is filled with, it's only natural that she'd cross paths with some of them from time to time. This has been the precedent set by the Marvel Comics universe too, so it's not something that's completely out of the question. Gao said it's part of the fun when working for such an expansive franchise. And to her credit, the choices for the MCU guest stars aren't as random as they seem. The writers spent a lot of time combing through all the movies and mining the comics of which characters might be a fun addition to the series. They wanted to view the series from a legal angle, so the writers had a fun thought experiment. They wondered what kind of funny legal trouble different Marvel characters could have, and how that could lead to a humorous trial. Though we should mention, it's not as big of a deal as you might think. Yes, the series has quite a few guest stars, but we honestly don't think it's as big of a problem as you might think. We highlighted earlier in the video how this is, more or less, like how it was in the comics too. Plus, with the whole legal angle of the show, it just makes sense that the series would feature a bunch of different characters and try to put them in funny situations in the courtroom. The series is, after all, called She-Hulk Attorney at Law. The show literally begins with Jen's personal life and career turned upside down when she gains her superpowers, and so it's only natural that her clients would be people who've also got some experience in that department. After all, who better to trust for superhero legal affairs than a literal, superpowered attorney? And it's not like the writers had no restrictions over who they could add to the series. Gao mentions that before they could port over any MCU characters to the show, they had to do one final check with Kevin Feige. This means they can't go around adding characters who might potentially be important in the future or off doing their own things currently in the Marvel canon. Next, the MCU has never been light on cameos. While seeing so many guest stars in She-Hulk Attorney at Law might seem odd to some viewers, the fact is that the MCU has never really been light on its cameos. The MCU is now filled with heroes around every nook and cranny, so it makes sense that they'd interact with one another. Feige himself also said once that Marvel is the world outside the character's window. In the comics, you can see Spidey swinging by at any moment, or the Fantastic Four could be flying down. It all comes down to the story that's being told, and the character serves to make it better. And in the case of She-Hulk Attorney at Law, we definitely think the MCU guest stars have done quite a lot to add some much-needed humor and charm to the series. This has always been the trend, even in the comics, with She-Hulk having a much more comedic tone than most other characters. Wrapping up this segment, let's discuss another issue fans had with She-Hulk. Disney Plus's latest series hasn't been without its fair share of problems, and among the most notable ones that fans took issue was with the change in Jennifer Walters' backstory. In the comics, she doesn't get her powers after getting in a car crash. Instead, she is gravely injured after a crime boss orders a hit on her. She's in need of of an urgent blood transfusion, and her cousin, Bruce Banner, is the only person available there to help out. And so he gives her his gamma-radiated blood, causing Walters to gain her powers. If you've seen the series, you know that this is quite different from her origin in She-Hulk Attorney at Law, and some die-hard comic book fans weren't pleased with this change. Head writer Jessica Gao clarified that the change came from Marvel's top brass. She stated that the mob-hit story didn't feel like the right tone for the vision they had for She-Hulk's first appearance in the MCU, and so they decided to scrap that part of her story for now. Because of this, they had to come up with a new way for her to gain her powers, preferably one that didn't have the main character on her deathbed in the first episode. It's clear most of the changes to the show have been in service to the story and tone, with the series having a much lighter approach to the narrative than even the comics. Some of these changes were definitely necessary. And with that, let's move on to some related news. Other news. Next, Marvel replaced an important Daredevil character in episode 5 of She-Hulk Attorney at Law. Fans are excited to see Daredevil finally make his way to the MCU, but we knew that it was always a possibility that the series' characters could get replaced or changed, and it seems the first of those changes has now been seen in a recent episode of She-Hulk Attorney at Law. We know from the episode that Murdock is apparently working with the designer Luke Jacobson to design his Daredevil costume. This new partnership would imply that Melvin Potter from the Daredevil series has now been replaced. Potter was a character from the first season of Daredevil and was responsible for designing the original suit. In the series, things didn't go too well for him because Kingpin forced him to design a similar suit for Bullseye. Later on, Melvin got caught by the FBI and was eventually sent to jail. It seems that this storyline is being treated as canon, which is why the character was replaced in favor of Jacobson. We're not sure if Potter will end up returning to the MCU, but his absence does hint that the Netflix Daredevil canon is being followed. Coming up, Madison and Wong's bonus scene didn't exist in the script. The mid-credit sequence seen in the 4th episode of She-Hulk was definitely one of the best. The delightful scene showed us a conversation between Wong and Madison and apparently didn't exist in the script. This new tidbit was revealed to us by Kat Coiro when she spoke to TV Line recently. The part where the two are riffing with each other came directly from the comedic chemistry of the two actors, which makes it all the more hilarious. Finally, She-Hulk Attorney at Law gets the lowest audience score since 2017's Inhumans. While Disney Plus's latest series has been seeing a decent critical reception, the audience scores for the series are lower than 2017's Inhumans, which was hated by just about everyone. The show is currently sitting at a 41% score on Rotten Tomatoes. Inhumans is at 44%, managing to remain a bit in the lead. Many think that this is due to the fact that She-Hulk was review bombed. It had very low ratings on another online website, IMDb, even before it was released. That's a wrap for this video. What did you think of She-Hulk's MCU guest stars? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.